very good morning to you. I'm Howard Feldman. This is the Synthesis of Podcast. Very excited this morning to be joined by Prabhashni Naidu, Director at Amazon Web Services, South Africa. Prabhashni is a Director and Telecommunications Lead at Amazon Web Services in South Africa. Prabhashni, good morning and welcome to the Synthesis Podcast. How are you doing?
Morning, Howard. I'm great, thanks. Hope you're well too.
I am indeed. All right. So I think before we begin, with the knowledge that a lot of people that watch this webinar might not be that technologically focused, it's hard not to have heard of AWS in truth. But just in case they've heard of it, but don't really understand the magnitude of the company and what it means that AWS is now in South Africa, why don't you give us a bit of an overview?
Sure. So maybe I can start by talking through what an AWS region is, right? As you've been aware, there's been a lot of press around AWS launching its region in South Africa earlier this year. So from an AWS perspective, we have the concept of a region, which is actually a physical location around the world where we cluster data centers. We would call each group of logical data centers an availability zone, or an AZ. Each AWS region consists of multiple isolated and physically separate AZs within the geographic area. Now in the Africa or the AWS Cape Town region specifically. So we have 3 availability zones with enough distance to significantly reduce the event or the impact of a single event impacting any form of business continuity. Yet it's near enough to be able to provide low latency for high availability applications. Each availability zone has its own independent power, cooling, physical security, and is connected to each other via redundant, ultra-low latency networking. So what this means is that our customers can focus on high availability and design the applications to run in multiple availability zones, achieving even greater fault tolerance. So like any other AWS infrastructure region around the world, the availability zone in the Cape Town region is equipped with backup power to ensure continuous and reliable power availability, thereby maintaining operations during electrical failures, load shedding, etc. So as our listeners are aware, we also offer over 175 fully featured services. And that means millions of customers, including the fastest growing startups, largest enterprises, and leading government agencies, trust AWS to power their infrastructure, become more agile, and lower their own costs. So from an AWS Cape Town region, again, we provide businesses of all sizes the access to scalable, dependable, and highly secure computing power, which is vital to keeping these organizations moving forward. From a business perspective, as I've already said, we enable businesses and government organizations, including those in the recent COVID period, to continue fighting the effects of COVID-19, to build cloud applications and to store their data locally while reaching end users across Africa. Now, it's also important to note that this gives us an ability to leverage some of those advanced AWS technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, and the Internet of Things to help our customers drive innovation in the organizations. And additionally, with AWS as a region being in South Africa, customers now have full access to the AWS industry-leading, robust security technologies and services. The AWS infrastructure regions meet the highest levels of security, compliance, and data protection. We're passionate about our customers' privacy. With the new region, customers with data residency requirements and those looking to comply with the Protection of Personal Information Act can now store their data in South Africa with the assurance that they retain ownership of their data and it doesn't move until they make the choice to move it.
So, in fact, we're joined as well by Synthesis Head of Cloud, Daryl Govender. Daryl, maybe you can also give us a perspective because we're really talking about the value proposition for customers and you are on the front lines being Synthesis Head of Cloud. What are you seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with Prabashini. I mean, the actual service offering from AWS is incredible, and for it to be available on our back door here in South Africa is really quite a great value proposition for customers on their own. And Prabashini touched on it, but that value proposition itself, maybe customers don't always realize when you get into these large scale cloud platform providers such as AWS. You get access to a plethora of services all the way up. Prabashini mentioned 175 plus services. You get significant access to a stack that gives you the opportunity to really grow your business, to scale your business, and to make sure that the basic things that perhaps sometimes we've seen is a little bit lacking in our South African context, such as reliability, perhaps security, those types of things, those actually solved a lot within the platform itself. So immediately, just by adopting the use of a cloud platform provider such as AWS, customers are getting significant benefits around being able to quantify business agility, staff productivity benefits, etc., but also realize things such as cost savings and that resilience that we mentioned in terms of using these high-level providers as well.
Mm-hmm. And what's interesting as well, something Prabashini mentioned earlier, is even things like load shedding. The fact that this is now local or regional means that the very specifics, I would imagine, of a region can be taken into account more than it could if it's not localized. So,
and I think that's quite important because again, it's about the reduction of the impact to any event further impacting business continuity.
In this age, customers really do expect that always-on experience from their providers. And I think platforms, again, such as AWS are really at the cutting edge of being able to provide that type of service to customers.
Can we look, Prabashini, at some of the trends maybe that we're seeing in the space, that AWS is seeing in the space?
So I think that as I alluded to earlier, we have millions of active customers who are using AWS monthly, and obviously these include customers across Africa. So the range of customers vary from startups like Africom, Robotics, Intersect, Juno, Time, to name a few, who are currently building their businesses on AWS. Then as part of that spectrum, we have enterprise customers like Absa, Vodacom, Standard Bank, Old Mutual, who are currently moving their existing systems to AWS. And then in parallel to that, I suppose, from a public sector perspective, we have organizations like Digital Earth Africa, the University of Pretoria, University of Witwatersrand, to name just a few, who are also using the plethora of AWS services
and that speaks to the range, and that speaks to the agility, doesn't it? Is when you look at this range of types of companies that are using the AWS service system.
Absolutely, and I think the important fact is it's about how these organizations are using the services in the case of public sector to better enable themselves to serve citizens across the South African continent. From an enterprise perspective, about how they're embracing transformation and innovation in that process. And from a startup perspective, how innovation is really being driven across those businesses.
In fact, I do want to talk about that as well, because one of the things that I've noticed in a lot of my discussions with in fact, some of the clients that you've mentioned is I keep getting references to AWS training and upskilling, assisting people on a grassroots level in South Africa. And this is a discussion with AWS itself, but now I'm talking about hearing it everywhere in the marketplace. This is something that I'm very passionate about, but I keep hearing. Give us obviously, we don't need to go into too much detail, but can you just give us a sense of, it's obviously part of the AWS strategy and culture to to build the country and to assist people?
Of course. So Howard, I mean, obviously AWS has a long history in South Africa. You know, we first established a presence in Cape Town by setting up a development center, probably in about 2004. So building pioneering technologies focused on networking, next generation support for our customer, software programs for the businesses, for AWS businesses and more have all really been part of that development center. In 2019, so last year, we created a 365 million Rand equity investment program, or the AWS equity equivalent investment program, which is really aimed at focusing or developing 100% Black South African small businesses within the ICT sector, supporting them to become cloud computing experts using our APN or the AWS Partner Network framework. Now, I think that from that perspective, AWS is obviously going to be providing the training, the education, and supporting the development of these businesses from a technical expertise in cloud computing. And the end result is to have a new set of partners with a new set of skills. But ultimately, education is key in the development of South Africa. So as AWS, we are making further significant investments in education, training and certification programs. So as an example, AWS supports the Data Science Academy, which is based on a platform where we're educating students on data analytics skills in order to produce the next generation of data scientists in Africa. AWS South Africa is working specifically with education institutions such as Durban University of Technology, Stellenbosch University, University of Cape Town, and many, many more to help train that next generation, train and create, I should say, the next generation of cloud professionals through programs such as AWS Academy and AWS Educate. So if I could maybe just tell you a little bit about those two programs specifically. From a South African perspective, students are benefiting from the AWS Academy program. So what this is it's really an introductory course which provides a detailed overview of cloud concepts, AWS core services, architecture, security, and support. The course prepares and enables those students to then pursue an AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner certification, which is one of the most popular technical certifications in the world today. We're also providing cloud development skills to the youth, and these youth are from previously disadvantaged communities and townships via the AWS ICASI program. So through this program, the students complete an intensive one-year training course, which provides a fundamental understanding of software development and cloud computing technologies, again, enabling that next generation of proficiency and giving those students the skills for where the world's moving towards.
Absolutely fantastic, and it's just as I say, for me, something I'm passionate about, and the fact that I'm hearing it and I love that, not from AWS, but hearing it in the marketplace, to me gives me absolute joy, because it means not only does AWS offer this and stand behind it, but that the message, which is so much clearly part of the AWS culture, is actually filtering through to the whole system, and that in itself is fantastic. So kudos to you as well, Daryl. I just want to bring you in here, the relationship between Synthesis and AWS. Can you give us a bit of talk to us about that, and then also something that Prabhashini mentioned earlier, and you might have mentioned it as well, is the productivity aspect for customer, the benefit of productivity. And I know that that's something that you and I have spoken about in the past. Can you talk a little bit to that in terms of what you've seen in assisting customers with the AWS platform?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just to grow, or just to build on what Prabhashini was saying, we've experienced this firsthand as a partner with AWS. So we've deliberately selected AWS in the last 6 years for our internal platform provider and partner of choice in cloud. And we've done for very very obvious reasons. Of course, from a capability perspective, what they have, that plethora of services, the range that we talked about, how can it assist our customers, not just ourselves. And then just from that certification, that program, that competency part that AWS has really meticulously crafted, I think it's really well suited to enabling partners. I mean, we've seen again firsthand for ourselves on our journey towards becoming now an advanced partner and hopefully onto the final tier of being a premier partner in the next few months, within the next year or so. We've seen significant investment, commitment, and support from AWS in that partner ecosystem, alongside the training benefits that Prabhashini had mentioned that we've seen as an organization. In fact, we've got roughly 50% of AWS certification coverage in our organization for our delivery staff, and strongly recommend customers as well as partners to certify, get on that certification path. I mean, there's quite a multitude of certifications available, and they range from, very foundational type training all the way up to a specialty type level into, very niche areas of capability, security, networking, just to name a couple. Coming back to the productivity side, all of that certification, all of that training, all of the investment into AWS and cloud platforms, I think gives customers the edge in terms of they can actually automate and be cloud native and free up in engineering time, if not a broader kind of capability or roles, free up a lot of their time to actually focus on the good stuff. And the good stuff is creating more service, more feature, more functionality for their end customers. Let's be honest, to sit around operating, kind of IT estate, I think platforms such as AWS make that a no-brainer, to be honest. And it really does free up a lot of that time that staff can then repurpose themselves and reinvest towards the value additive type tasks that are going to create more opportunity for the business.
And in fact, another area that we didn't really focus on, but I'd like to, Prabhashini, if I could just ask you as well, is the concept of sort of entrepreneurship, of looking at the smaller types of companies, the different tiers. Can you just talk to us about that, because that's obviously very much needed here in South Africa, as I'm sure everywhere, but our focus is obviously this region. How does AWS talk to the different tiers and segments of the market?
So I think maybe I'm going to coach my answer in terms of how we enable productivity across those different tiers, if that's okay. So Darryl's already touched on it a little bit from a perspective of innovation, etc. But let's take as an example the manufacturing sector in South Africa, right? So we know that it's the largest producer of data when compared to any of the other sectors. And we also know that it's at the forefront of the fourth industrial revolution. So if I had to look at an example of an entity in that space, a great example of artificial intelligence as a service is a startup called Data Profit. And Data Profit enables manufacturers within the automotive, casting, and wheel fabrication industries to implement autonomous manufacturing. So for Data Profit specifically, the region has helped them provide their customers with improved efficiencies, higher data security, increased response, and stronger regulatory compliance capabilities. So Data Profit has been using AWS services for a number of years, and these include the broader ones like Amazon EC2, Amazon S3, Amazon Route 53, and CloudFront. But now that same organization is migrating to additional services. And the reason for that is to rapidly scale their infrastructure to meet the high demand without degrading the user experience. So through their own artificial intelligence platform called Prescribe, it's a proprietary technology running on AWS. Data Profit has now been able to help customers around the world experience significantly improved product quality outputs and reduce costs by an average of 40%. So as a company that is heavily reliant on leading cloud services of AWS, through the region availability, we've been able to provide Data Profit with the extended ability to provide their customers and engineers the highest levels of security, availability, compliance and data protection. And that's just one of the examples in that spectrum that we've seen. So I think, as we continue from an AWS perspective, unlocking new opportunities for artificial intelligence as a service, companies in the region will have the ability to extend and deepen their own product offerings. Through our continued investment, the adoption will continue accelerating through industries in South Africa. And that's really the networking impact that you gain from engaging or partnering or working with AWS.
Errol, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think that's quite a key message. I mean, what we've seen a lot of customers, they get their kind of feet wet looking at infrastructure as a service, EC2, like Prabhashini had mentioned. But over time, I think customers realized, I know a lot of the time they worry about being locked into a vendor, but there's the other concept, the other side of the coin that talks about the lockout aspect as well, where you're not leveraging those higher platform services. So as an example, EC2 in the compute space, in the SA region itself, we've got ECS, we've got EKS, we've got Fargate from a container perspective, and then we've got serverless through Lambda technology. I mean, that's got runtimes for a multitude of programming languages that customers can adopt right away. And I think that's quite key, that customers look to make that journey further up the stack and use it quite strategically. Not to preclude themselves from those services like Prabhashini has mentioned that are creating the real value for customers.
Absolutely. Finally, and because we are running out of time, Prabhashini, you're sitting in an incredibly, I think, exciting space. What do you think the next couple of years looks like in this area?
So I think that we will, from an AWS perspective, we will continue supporting our customers and partners in terms of how they innovate. Ultimately, that's our focus. How do we enable businesses to innovate and build on AWS technologies to further enhance their own profitability? It's about being able to provide our customers the ability to rapidly scale their own business. It's the agility, it's the profitability, and it's having strong partners in the market to be able to help customers deliver on that.
Absolutely. Daryl Govender, Head of Cloud at Synthesis, Prabhashini Naidu, Director at Amazon Web Services, South Africa. It's been so interesting having this conversation. I really do appreciate you guys taking the time. I'm Howard Feldman. I'm Head of Marketing and People at Synthesis Software. We conduct these podcasts. We talk to interesting people. Do make sure that you have signed up to our YouTube channel. Guys, thank you for taking the time, and have a fantastic day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Howard. Thanks, Daryl.